Dream glanced at the kid, passed out by the fire, frowning. He'd been out gathering supplies, unable to sit even in the dark, when he stumbled on a kid passed out on the ground. Blood was pooling around his stomach, staining the forest floor. He'd been shocked, standing still with the kid at his feet. He wasn't shocked at the wound or at the blood. No, he knew all too well how dangerous it was out here, especially when you're all alone. And that was the kicker. What was a kid, someone so young, doing out in the middle of nowhere with no one else in sight? It was dangerous out here, even for Dream. He shouldn't even have been in this situation in the first place. He should have stayed at his campsite, hiding until morning. But he couldn't just stand being cooped in a corner of the woods when the world was crumbling around him. It didn't feel right. He felt jittery, like if he stopped to rest for even more than an hour, he was doing something wrong. Traveling on the run nonstop was not something he could just, switch off when he needed sleep or peace of mind. And when he looked at this kid, this half-starved, sickly kid, he saw himself. He saw the nights where he couldn't sleep without keeping an eye open and an ear out for trouble. When he had a bad day for hunting, having to go hungry again. Maybe that's why he patched the kid up, why he dragged him back to his campsite, blood staining his fingers. Why he'd let himself recover on his bedroll, even if that meant he had to sleep on the ground. Not to mention the fact he liked to think he was a decent human, and decent human beings don't leave little kids to die alone in the forest. The first time the kid stirred, Dream was by his side in an instant, hands hovering near him uncertainly. Dream held his breath as the kid groaned, eyelids fluttering. He had no idea what he was doing. He was a man of survival, sticking to himself. Was he supposed to wake the kid up or let him rest, which was better for his wounds? Dream made a split-second decision, grabbing a container of water. The next time the kid stirred, he lifted him gently by the shoulders, slowly bringing it to his lips. The kid whined slowly, face twisting. Dream froze, heartbeat loud in his ears. Gray eyes blinked open, staring at his mask. They looked distant, unfocused. Dream held his breath as the kid blinked slowly, small frown pasted on his features. "Hey!" Dream whispered, feeling strangely like he was talking to a wild animal. Can you please drink this? It'll help eventually." The kid just stared at his mask in the sunlight. He could make out things he hadn't last night. Strangely, on the either side of the kid's face were tiny little horns. They were dark, practically the same color as his hair. With enough carefully maneuvering, they could be hid entirely. Dream didn't have time to worry about them. Come on, he said, voice straining. "Please, I promise I'm not going to poison you." The kid blinked, like he'd forgotten he was there with Dream, before slowly opening his mouth. Dream felt a wave of relief as the kid drank with hardly any resistance. The Dream felt shaky, even as he held the kid to his chest. This was way out of his comfort zone. It happened 4 more times. Dream had to hover like a mother hen 4 more times. Every time the kid seemed out of it. Eyes glazed. The last few times he was murmuring nonsense, though. So that was progress. The more aware the kid became, the more wary he was of Dream. Dream supposed that made sense. Whatever would force a kid as young looking as him, to live off the land must have been unpleasant. He especially didn't like the patchwork of scars littered across the kid's entire body. Some so old they had to have been from years and years ago. Dream didn't allow himself to think too hard on that. In any case, waiting for the kid to finally wake up was torture. Days had already passed, making Dream more jittery and jittery. Dream never allowed himself to stop, to relax. Even now, during a lull and the hunters, he didn't stay in one place for long, and now here he was, standing in a semi-permanent campsite. For the first time in years, Dream glanced at the kid, whose breathing seemed to have been getting smoother and smoother as the hours ticked by. It had to have been worth it, right? Tubbo snapped awake with a jolting shout. His head spun, and he clapped his eyes shut, heart beating loudly in his ears. Where was he? How was he alive again? Was the respawn magic permanently messed up? Would he never die? Tubbo's hands flew to his chest, and he winced as he prodded at the bandages. How had he woken up? Why wasn't he still... Wait, why did he have bandages on? Hey! Hey, you're awake! Tubbo yelped, hands scrambling for a sword. They met air and immediately whirled toward the voice, tense and alert. He gasped, heart skipping the beat. There, sitting next to the fire, was Dream. Tubbo's heart stuttered in his chest as he analyzed the man, ready to bolt at the slightest indication that the man would attack. Dream looked just as rough as Tubbo did, with blood stains and dirt smudges all over his green top. His pants were even worse. They were white, and they looked like he hadn't washed them in a month. Sword